they were not able to be a part of this live meeting. So just want to give everyone a heads up that. So if you're not comfortable being featured on the video, feel free to just stop your video and just listen into the audio, and we'll go from there. So we have this meeting until 7:30. Some I know on the city side have to end a little bit early, so we're going to try to do our best to fit them in early enough. And then if anyone has questions, we're going to open that up towards the end. We've received a lot of great questions up front, and we're going to address those. But first, we're going to start off with introductions, and I'm going to start it off with the city side. And let me start with the Cambridge Police and our new acting commissioner, Christine Elo.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us. I just want to do a brief introduction and tell you a little bit about the things I'm going to be prioritizing over the next year before I pass it on. So all my city partners, just be patient with me. So hi, everybody. My name is Christine Elo. I grew up in the city of Cambridge, went through Cambridge Public Schools. I've now been with the Cambridge Police Department now for 26 years. I absolutely love my job. Some of the priority areas that I'm going to focus on for the next year, they work in an acronym that I'm going to call ACTS. It's about accountability, community, transparency, and safety. And for accountability, I think it's really important for our residents to know that we are accountable to you. So it's really important that you have the ability to provide feedback, positive or negative, when you have an interaction with an officer. One of the things that we're in the final stages of doing is having these "How are we doing" cards made available. So we're going to be distributing these feedback cards in 7 languages that are going to be available throughout the city. So I'll be working with Jeremy. When we put these out, Jeremy will let you know where you can pick them up and how you can give us feedback. You're going to be able to commend an officer, and also if you want to file a complaint, there's a number of different ways that you can do that. We're going to be holding community conversations even more in the future. I want to hear from you. What are your expectations? What are we doing well? What can we improve on? So I'm really interested in getting out and getting to know and be in contact with as many people as possible. For me, it's really important for the people in our community, right? The C is for community, to know that I care deeply about serving all of our residents. And I know there's some residents out there that don't necessarily have a trusting relationship with the police. And we really want to be a resource and support for all of our residents. So really going out there, building, bridges and building trusting relationships with our entire community. Another big commitment that I have is transparency. Before Commissioner Bard left, he promised this data dashboard that would give more information to our community about the work that we're doing, our motor vehicle stops, our arrests. I am 100% committed to building out that dashboard. I'm actually working with Director Giacobbe on getting that dashboard together. As we start rolling out that data, we'll have more meetings for you to ask questions about what we're doing and how we're doing it. And the last piece that I will add is about safety. We're committed to making the city of Cambridge the safest and most desirable place to live and work. And we really want to address the gun violence in our city. We're working with, we look at gun violence and violence in our city as a public health crisis. And we're working with our public health department on creative ways that we can address violence and find alternatives to the criminal justice system for some of our young people that are caught up. So I'm just going to stop there and turn it over, but I look forward to a conversation tonight, and I look forward to getting to know more of you. Thank you so much. Sue?
Great. Good evening, everyone. We appreciate you attending this meeting. My name is Sergeant Susan Kale. I've been on 29 years. I'm also a North Cambridge resident, so I think I have a little bit more vested interest in our community. I always like to keep tabs on what's going on. And feel free to contact me if you have any questions down the road via email or via phone. And I think everything's posted on the website. Tonight, I just wanted to go over some crime statistics for the past few months. I think Jeremy's going to send these links to you at a later time, probably tomorrow, so you can have them for your own edification. So from 3/28 to 9/27, we've had 10 auto thefts in North Cambridge. Drug activity, we've had 3 reports of drug activity. House breaks, we've had 7. Larceny for motor vehicles, we've had 32. And one of the things I just want to mention quickly is most of these were spikes in the summertime, June, July, and August. And that's when I think people were going in and out of their vehicles, not locking them. And that's just something, if you can spread the word, that's what people look for. I know my neighbor had somebody go into their car at nighttime around 2, 3 in the morning. So there are people fishing around the neighborhood, checking for unlocked doors, whether it be a house or a car. So if you can try to keep, especially now we're getting into the holiday season, so I think we might see a little bit more activity relative to, you know, people checking car doors. But I just want to press upon you, if something does happen, it really helps us at the police department if you call that in, because then they can do some crime analysis and see if there's a pattern. So if one of your neighbors says, hey, geez, this happened, what should I do? Should I bother? And typically, most of the items taken from the motor vehicles is just loose change. So people don't think to report that, but it is important so we know who's in our neighborhood. The biggest thing, believe it or not, we're seeing is larceny of bicycles. Over 65 bicycles have been taken from March 28th to 9/27. A good portion of those have been up by, let me give you the area. Some of them were locked. 68% of the bicycles in this neighborhood were locked when stolen. And the Cambridge Park Drive, Concord Turnpike, they've seen about 30% of the bike thefts in North Cambridge. And my neighbor here on 2500 Mass Ave, they had their bicycle taken. So you're locking it, but just you know, try to be a little bit more diligent, put it in the house if you can, so it's less opportunity for someone to take. Malicious destruction, we had 56 counts up North Cambridge, and the reason why the numbers were so high, we had one person that did 17 reports of tire slashing, and that occurred up by the Cameron Ave, Cedar Street, and Dudley Street area. A few cars were also keyed on Woodbridge Street, and there was some malicious destruction, including graffiti, broken business windows, and miscellaneous damage to cars, residences. So the tire slashing was a problem, but they did apprehend the person. And one of the other things we just wanted to go with package theft, there was 10 reported in that time frame. And with the holiday season, once again, fast approaching, we know everybody uses Amazon to get things delivered. If you can maybe have it delivered to work, or if you think somebody's going to be home, if you can do it to a neighbor so the package can actually be taken in. We hate to see that increase. Going over the 2 incidents that the commissioner just mentioned for the recent gun violence in North Cambridge. Saturday, was it March 27th, there was a fatal shooting that occurred over on the Pemberton Street basketball court. This is still an active investigation at this time. And then on August 25th at 6 p.m., there was an exchange of firearms bullets on Middlesex and Pemberton Street. This investigation, I believe, to the best of my knowledge, and I'll ask Deputy Cabral, I believe that they apprehended the suspects, and that should be a closed investigation. So Jeremy will send these out, but most importantly, if you see something, say something. You know, don't think, a lot of people I work with, the seniors, don't want to call the police because they're not sure if it's important or not. We're here 24 hours a day. It's important to call it in. The officers will check it out. And if it's nothing, at least you have peace of mind that you called and got it verified that, you know, it wasn't substantiated. So please tell your neighbors, don't be afraid to call the police. That's what we're here for. So I'll turn it back to you, Jeremy.
All right, thank you, Sergeant Kale. So to continue with introductions, a few more folks that are on the CPD end. Next, I'll turn it over just for introductions to Superintendent DePietro.
Press on the wrong. Okay, I got the right button now. Sorry, I'm having a lot of connectivity issues here. My name is Lenny DePietro. I'm a superintendent of the operations division of the police department. Born, raised, grew up, schools, Cambridge, Mass. And I've been with the city of Cambridge for now going on 46 years. And I'm glad to be on here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent. We have a couple of deputy superintendents on the call tonight. One of them is Deputy Cabral.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Fred Cabral. I'm the Deputy Superintendent in charge of criminal investigations and also the Family Social Justice Section of the Cambridge Police Department.
Thanks, Deputy. And another deputy that's on the call is Deputy Superintendent Sil Ferreira.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Sil Ferreira. I'm Deputy Superintendent in charge of the night operations in the patrol division. Thank you.
Good. And last but not least, on the CPD side is Director of Community Outreach, Kesson Green.
Good evening, everyone. Kesson Green, Director of Outreach and Community Programs for the Cambridge Police Department. Been here 4 years now. It will be 5 in January.
Thank you, Kesson. So that's the just a few members of the CPD team, and they're on the call tonight and available for any follow-up questions later on. I'm going to turn it over now to the Cambridge Fire Department. So before I do, to Chief Mahoney, this is a pretty unique opportunity for you in North Cambridge, in that normally we have neighborhood sergeant meetings and it's just Cambridge Police. But thanks to the questions that were submitted up front, we realized that, it was probably the wisest to have a broader public safety discussion and involve our partners. So really fortunate that we have the heads of all of our public safety agencies in Cambridge on this call tonight, including Chief Mahoney of the Fire Department.
Thank you, Jeremy. My name is Jerry Mahoney. I'm the fire chief for the city of Cambridge. I've been with the department 38 years. I grew up in the city of Cambridge. I'm a third generation public safety employee. My grandfather was a Cambridge police officer. My father did a short stint for 7 years as a firefighter. And as I said, I've been with the department for 38 years, and just happy to be here with you this evening. Thanks.
Thank you, Chief. We have two directors from our other public safety agencies in Cambridge, and they both have first name Christina. I'll turn to Director of Emergency Communications, Director Giacobbe first.
Thanks, Jeremy, and I think it's the best name, actually. But anyways, so my name is Christina Giacobbe. I'm the Director of Emergency Communications and 911. Our department is separate public safety agency that operates the police, fire, and EMS dispatch for the city, and we also manage public safety IT. I've been in public safety for 26 years, and I am a Cambridge resident and a North Cambridge resident. And thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Christina. And now let me turn it over to Director Correa of the Animal Commission.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Christina Correa. I've been with the department for 26 years, 2 of those years as the director. I am happy to be here, and I've also born and raised in Cambridge, Cambridge Public Schools, live in Cambridge.
Thank you very much. We want to just actually give the residents an opportunity to introduce themselves as well. So I'm going to go in the order of my screen. If you want to pass, just feel free to do a wave. If you want to say a few words, by all means, you're welcome to. So let me start with Ms. Woods, Eileen Woods.
Hi, everybody. I'm Eileen Woods, and my family has been in this home on Murray Hill Road for over 75 years. I'm a retired educator, principal, and my brother and my sister-in-law were educators in Cambridge for 38 years each. So we love the city. My mother died at 99, and she said there was never a better city than the city of Cambridge, and she was given the key by Mayor Marr on her 95th birthday. So I love Cambridge. I thank you for all the service that you give to Cambridge. I'm happy to be here tonight to listen.
Thank you so much for joining us. And I know you submitted a question, and we'll get to that in a little bit. I'm going to turn it over next to Allison Altman. All right, now let's skip right over to Laura Lee Fritsch. You're on mute, Laura Lee. See if you can unmute yourself there.
First of all, I want to thank everybody for their service. And we want to make this as collaborative as possible. We love this neighborhood. We've been here for 31 years now. And we understand it's one of the safer neighborhoods in Cambridge, and we just want to keep it that way.
Well, thanks again for everything that you did to make this meeting happen.
And thanks to you. And Christine Elo, congratulations on your appointment, and thank you for your service.
All right, thank you. Next, I'm going to go on my screen. Looks like Jackson White.
Come on, Jack.
I'm Terry White, using
Okay.
Jackson's.
Okay.
My family has been on this street for 110, 115 years. My uncle was born at 4 Sherman Street. His family then moved down the street and bought 191 Sherman Street. And then when he got married to my aunt, my mother's sister, they bought the house next door, 187 Sherman Street. And now, of course, they've all passed, but 40 years ago, when my husband and I got married, we bought 191 Sherman Street from my aunt and uncle. And I've raised 3 children here. So, and if you could walk down Sherman Street and see the horses' heads, which I guess people know at our driveway, those are the houses. But anyway, we thank all of you for everything you do for Cambridge. We love Cambridge. My family loves Cambridge. My children don't want to leave Cambridge. So anything we could do also to help, let us know.
And thank you for your support as well leading up to this meeting, Terry. Appreciate it. All right, I'm going to turn it over next to Pastor Steve Watson, who we've done quite a bit of work with over the years, and really thank him for everything he does for not just the police department, but the city of Cambridge. Pastor Watson.
Thanks, Jeremy. Yeah, Steve Watson. I'm the senior pastor of Reservoir Church. We've been in the neighborhood since 2004 on Ringe Ave and Notre Dame Ave. And I know that no particular church is for all people, but we hope to and try to play our part in the fabric of the neighborhood as well and making it a better place to be. So happy to do whatever we can in that regard too. Good to be with you all. And as everyone's saying, Commissioner Elo, glad you're in your spot. So good to see you.
Thanks so much, Steve. All right, I'm going to go next on my screen to Bradley Richardson. All right, looks like you're going to be okay. We're going to skip ahead. And Terry, I'm not sure if Danielle White is part of your same account. I have a Danielle White.
She's on her own account.
Okay. We have a strong turnout from the White family. This is terrific. And then another name I have here is Evan Bozia.
Yep. Hello. Can you hear me at all?
Yes, we can.
Yeah. No. I just moved here like a year ago, I think now. So I'm mostly just listening to hear what you guys are all about and what's going on.
Well, thank you very much for participating in this. We do appreciate it.
Also part of the White clan.
It's a very strong turnout. So that's I think that's everyone that is has registered and is listed name wise. Again, we're gonna video record this message so and make this available to others that may have wanted to attend but could not. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it over for some of the questions that were previously submitted. We had a couple of questions for the police department, for animal control, for ECC. And then we also had a question that was not related to any of those agencies, but I will give some direction on that. In the interest of time, I want to start out with animal control and Director Correa. And it was specifically questions about coyotes, the absence of skunks, raccoons, opossums, and the rat liaison. So if you're able to provide a little color on those, that would be terrific. And certainly those that are on this call that may have submitted this question, feel free to chime in after. But if you could address at a high level some of those particular points and concerns.
Hello, everyone. Coyotes are pretty common throughout Massachusetts. I don't think that's anything new that no one doesn't know. There's probably over 11,000 coyotes throughout the state of Massachusetts. Ultimately, coyote attacks are rare. And they usually occur when they become habituated. And habituated means when they just adapt and become very used to their environment and their humans being around them. Predominantly why they're staying around is for a food source, whether you're providing it directly or indirectly. That's the main thing. And then second is shelter. They hold a territory up to 30 miles. So even though you might think you're seeing a lot of coyotes, you might actually see the same coyote holding a territory across the city. I know that it can be fearful to see a coyote in your neighborhood. And we do recommend hazing, making them feel uncomfortable, trying to deter them from the area, making the area less desirable. If we do feel that there is one that is a public safety concern, of course, they fall under the jurisdiction of the Department of Fisheries and Wildlife. And if need be, they will come out and dispatch the animal. And so as of right now, I think the best approach to take with our resident coyotes is an educational approach, and to make sure people know what they can do to keep their pets safe, keep themselves safe. And we have a lot of information on our website and other links attached to that if need be. And if you have any further questions, obviously I'll be happy to answer them. As far as the lack of skunks and other animals in the city, we actually probably fielded over 458 wildlife calls so far this year. And we haven't even tallied the ones for August and September year. So we still have a great wildlife population in the city. So as you know, it's one of the fastest growing cities, and areas get developed on, and that's what happens. They lose their habitats, so they become, more used to people. So if things are redeveloped or done over or built on, then they're going to find new shelter elsewhere. But predominantly animals are going to be more active during their mating season and baby season. So it isn't uncommon to see wildlife out during daylight hours. But what we're looking for as far as red flags that we want you to call us is anything that appears sick or injured, acting aggressively, appearing to be rabid. We're available from 7 in the morning until 7 at night, and we do have staff on call for after hours. We're on the weekends as well. So please feel free to call the emergency line if you see any sick, injured, rabid, or aggressively acting wildlife. And we'll be happy to respond and take care of that accordingly. As far as rats, I actually am happy to say our department does not deal with rats. That falls under inspectional services and the health department and the DPW. They usually collaborate together. I know that the city just put in a lot of efforts for the rodent control program. And if you need any help with rodents, they have a website and a phone number that you can contact regarding any rodent sightings or issues, or if someone's not doing something properly that you think that is attracting rodents. So that actually would fall under their jurisdiction. We do not deal with rodents.
Christina, there was also an additional question in the chat about geese in North Cambridge Catholic Cemetery.
Yep, they definitely hang out there. Actually, they've been there for quite a while. The Canadian geese. We do have 2 that have old injury limps, but they're still thriving. So we wouldn't remove them from the population unless they started to decline. But we don't trap and remove healthy wildlife. It's just not something that we do. But if something is sick or injured or rabid, then of course we will get it to either rehab or humane euthanasia or vet.
Can I just add to?
No, if I may, Christina, first of all, most of the Canadian geese are because of the woman we call Mother Goose, and she goes out and she feeds them. But that's a totally different issue. My question was specific to like the coyotes in Arlington going on the attack. That to me is not part of my history, and I grew up in the country. I've always considered coyotes kind of friendly and whatever. Not friendly like I want to go up and pet you, but like I've never considered them a concern.
A threat.
And so hearing the coyote attacks in Arlington has just become concerning. And as far as the other critters that have disappeared from the neighborhood, again, as a homeowner, I'm not complaining. It just seems odd to me.
I think that people have been good about taking care of their properties for the most part. So sometimes if they're not allowed to live on people's property in clutter, under sheds or porches, like I said, number one, what they're looking for is shelter, the skunks and possums and raccoons. Number two is food. So if your yard or your neighborhood is not where they're finding those things, they're going to move along to other places where they're going to find them. If someone is feeding the animals or there are bird feeders around, it is going to attract other things, turkeys, rats, any animals. So if there's a food source or even a water source, we have a lot of people with either water bird feeders or koi ponds in their backyards, or some sort of water feature is becoming really popular on their property. So those are the things that they'll come around for. So sometimes if we just change the behavior of those things, then it will deter them from the area. So I'll have them, if they can, bring the bird feeders in for a week or two, or shut off the water feature or cover it for a week or two, and then usually they'll move along. Most of our complaints come from them getting into people's gardens. So that's where we get a lot of nuisance wildlife complaints, or if the squirrels are trying to get into people's homes. But I mean, could the coyotes be eating them? Absolutely. That's what they do. They eat small animals. They prefer rodents, rabbits, squirrels, skunks, and they will take a cat and a small dog, even if leashed, if they're hungry enough. So it is possible that the coyotes are affecting the population there, but considering the number of wildlife calls we still have regarding those specific animals, I would say that there's still a great wildlife population in Cambridge.
Can I just also ask about, and I know it's private property, so if we are having issues with the geese and the woman feeding the geese for the last year and a half in North Cambridge Catholic Cemetery, what can we do about it? What can be done? Is there anything? I mean, I know it's private property, but you can't even walk in that cemetery most times because there's so much geese poop, and there's like 30 of them.
I don't know if it might be helpful if maybe inspectional services can reach out to the property owner to maybe speak to the woman, but the city does not have any jurisdiction over private property. If it was being done on public property, they could cite her essentially for littering, I believe, would be the violation, because it's a health issue. But I don't know what they would be able to do when it's considered to be private property. I know that in the past, they have tried to have sort of mediation with property owners and their residents, neighbors, and it has worked in the past. Whether they can reach out and do that is a possibility to the owner of the cemetery. I'm not sure, but I think it would be worth looking into. Because
our property abuts it, and the geese are right there. So
yeah, I know it sounds silly, but a bird of prey, an owl or a hawk, a statue, it does really work well. And even on the docks along the Charles River, every night, the people who own the boat docks in the marina put out fake statues of coyotes to keep the geese off their docks. So those things do work. So I know that your property abuts it. It's not your property, but it might deter them a little bit if you were to put something like that up high on your house or your fence overlooking the cemetery or into the cemetery. It might keep them away.
All right, thank you.
Are there any other questions for the Animal Commission? All right, well, thank you very much, Christina.
Thank you, Christina.
Thank you.
All right, so a couple of questions that we received over at the police department are specific to patrols, specific to bike patrols, foot patrols, just general visibility, and wanted to open it up to Commissioner Elo, Deputy Ferrer, Superintendent DePietro to speak generally about patrol deployments and bike patrols, foot patrols, how that works, not just necessarily in North Cambridge, but just citywide and how we handle that. So if you guys could address that, that'd be appreciated.
Sure, I'll start a little bit before I turn it over to Superintendent DePietro, but as Sergeant Kale was saying, we are a data-driven department. So we deploy our resources based on calls for service. So if you are having an issue in a particular area, as Sue has pointed out, it's really important that you call the police and so we can document it. So everything from motor vehicle thefts, if you think somebody broke into your car, we want to take that report. Bike thefts, anything, it's really important that if a crime has occurred, you might think it's something small. Oh, they only took change. I'm not going to really call that in. We want to know. And the other thing that I really want to know is if you're not seeing the walk-in patrols, we want to direct our patrols to where our community members want to see them. So if there's an area, we have been getting reports and wanting to see officers around Pemberton Street, so we're deploying them there. We're deploying them around Jefferson Park, Jackson Circle. So where is it that you want to see the police? And we'll make sure, working with Superintendent DePietro and Sil Ferreira, that we deploy those resources where people want to see them. So is it in parks? If you see groups congregating that make you uncomfortable, let us know where those groups are and we'll totally deploy our resources there. And I'll turn it over to Superintendent DePietro to follow up.
So recently we've been receiving concerns about the officers on their directed patrols. And one of the directions that they were given were to get out and engage the public, to speak to the people who are actually out there at a given time where we've seen the concerns and we've heard from the concerns of the residents. So to get out and engage those individuals that are actually there at that time so that we can find out what's going on. So, a meeting like this is fine, but we want to meet them face to face. We want them to meet the officers that are working in that neighborhood. We want them to engage with those officers so that they can have really a name to attach to that officer's uniform and be able to take the concerns back to us so that we can deploy our staffing to those needed areas. As the commissioner said, we're data driven, so we're looking at that. We, every day we're reading our reports as they come in and taking appropriate action as necessary. And that's how we do it.
And I'll just add that I don't ever want people to be afraid to call the police because they're not sure about how we're going to respond. When it comes to young people congregating, we are so skilled and really trained about how to engage effectively with young people. We're not going in there to arrest young people. We're going in there just to kind of express some concerns, whether it's people, drinking in the park or smoking marijuana. That has been a report that we get a lot. We are going to engage with people with respect and dignity, asking young people to move along. Arrest for us is an absolute last resort. If you see somebody in the community that you believe is struggling with some mental health issues, those are situations that, again, we approach with respect and dignity, trying to connect people to services and not coming in just looking to, arrest people. It really is about, treating people with respect and dignity and connecting people to services. So please don't ever fear calling the police in how we're going to respond.
And again, it's not about just harassing kids on the street or whatever. That's not what we're about. We want to know who you are. We want to be able to have a mutual agreement and conversation with you guys. So when there's really like an issue we're concerned about, and we're going to get to the North Cambridge Cemetery again, like I said, we don't see the bicycle patrols anymore. We don't see the foot patrols anymore. You're not engaging with the children in the neighborhood anymore. And I understand we've gone through a year of pandemic, but even before that, it seemed to have stopped. And I don't even know who 11R is anymore.
Wow. Yeah. That is something having, for me, my dream is to have a full-time bike unit. Maybe before I retire, we'll have a year-long, bike unit that's out there pedaling right now. And I'm not gonna, we can staff our shifts, but anything over and above has been a challenge. So you're always gonna have your patrol cars that are active in that area. So the 11 Rs, the 10 Rs, the car, it's funny that you understand that, the cars that patrol.
I know car 5, I know 13R, I know 10R, I know 11R. I know a 9R is occasionally on, like, I get that. I don't know who's in those cars.
Yeah, and that's our challenge now, to get them out. And one of the things you talked about, even young people, one of the challenges that we have is how do we help the community, engage with each other also, and how can the police be kind of a bridge for that? You might not know the young people that are in the park, but can there be, when the pandemic is over, some community forums where the police come in, where we get to know the young people, where our community members get to engage with young people that they don't know either. So that's something that I'm hoping we can do sometime in the future, when we can all get together in person and really help people meet each other and connect. But bike patrol, as soon as we can get our numbers up where we want them, you will see bikes out there. I swear, before I retire, we're going to have bikes out there. And then we're struggling every single year just to put on enough to have a full-time bike unit. Sorry, go ahead.
No, ma'am, you have two 15-year-old sons. I mean, you know what's going on out there.
Yeah, I do. They're actually 16 now, almost driving. It's, oh my goodness. You know me. That's funny. You did your homework. That's great.
Oh, yes. We love this neighborhood and we're not going to give up on it.
Good.
So just to go back, one of the other questions that's related to this conversation was specific to package thefts, and Sergeant Kale in her opening remarks noted that, and it actually surprised me too, that we've only had 10 reported package thefts between March and September. That's usually a very vastly underreported crime that occurs. And if we are data driven, we really need, if that happens to you, to report that incident, to report any incidents like this, to help us determine where to allocate our resources. So I just wanted to kind of reinforce that point, because it is really important, and the likelihood that there's a lot more than 10 package thefts that have occurred in the neighborhood over the last 6 months. Deputy Ferreira, Superintendent, anything else that you want to add as it relates to visibility and patrols?
Fred, go ahead. Sil.
No, I actually think the Commissioner and Superintendent DePietro covered it all. I appreciate the opportunity just to be at the meeting and listen to any of the concerns that anyone has, but thank you.
And then one of the other.
I'm going to add one more thing. Many of us have cameras and we're willing to make the video available. I think I speak for most of us. We're willing to make the video available at all times.
And we have in the past.
And we have in the past, and we will in the future. So please keep that in mind, but there doesn't seem to be a database of people willing to do that. Is there any plans to do a database?
As long as you volunteer to provide them, but we can't ask for them with our surveillance ordinance.
And that's a city ordinance, not a department ordinance.
Right.
I actually have one more question about, I guess, related to activity. Again, the cemetery, which is a thorn in my side. We've called, I guess, numerous times about suspicious activity in the cemetery and at night. We've seen, drug activity in there. Fireworks. Can there be more patrols in there on a routine basis?
We could, is that gate still open to get in?
The gate is, yep.
Still open.
And I can tell you, I have tried to engage with the cemetery, North Cambridge Catholic, the association. You get to the secretary, they never, I've been calling them for a year and a half. They never return the call. And I recently had a breach on their fencing. We did report it to the police, and they cut a hole in the fence and did some damage on my property, but theft. And I would have provided the surveillance to the security too, because we do have a camera, but the way it was at like 4 a.m. and you really couldn't see anything. You could see some, you know, like somebody came in, but you couldn't really see anything. But it's just, they're a terrible neighbor. That's how I'm going to put it. And I have family buried in that cemetery. I can't even go in and walk in there between the geese and whatever. But
We can absolutely provide extra patrols there.
thank
I know
you.
I'm taking notes. Copious notes.
We can also have one of our liaisons with the different organizations out in the city reach out and try to connect. So we have a couple of contacts, even through some people on this call, that we can follow up with to get the appropriate contact information and do that follow-up.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I wish they could close the gates at night. That would probably solve a lot of issues. But those gates have not been closed in years. Decades, right?
To the point about video, Deputy Cabral, do you want to just reinforce the importance of that and how helpful it can be?
I would say, you know, we were fortunate enough through a lot of hard work and cooperation in the neighborhood, we were able to make the arrest on what was basically a running gun battle from Ringe Ave down through Pemberton Street. It wasn't a random event. It was targeted. They knew each other. They had met. But people in the neighborhood came out, gave our patrol officers direction. We were able to obtain video from people's cameras. They offered it to us, and it was very helpful in ultimately leading us to both arrests. So when we have these events, our detectives will generally canvass the area for video. And during that canvass, we saw it, and we were literally viewing video of it within hours of the actual shooting event. So you know, coming out, talking to the first responding officers, sharing information with detectives, and letting us know you have video, and then sharing that video with us is a critical part of cooperating with us to help us make those arrests that make everybody feel safer and let them know that they're not on the street. So that, you know, we don't really have a database. We're not going to collect database. We're not going to be soliciting people's data information, but when we're looking after an event, if you can offer that to us, it's quite helpful.
All right, thank you, Deputy. Dr. Woods, I know you had submitted a question right before the meeting, and I hadn't had a chance to connect with the appropriate people on it, but do you want to raise it about traffic enforcement?
You sure? The question was really centered on Murray Hill Road, which is a street that is parallel to Mattnon High School and the International School. There is a stop sign, you know, the stop sign, the 20 miles an hour stop sign. My question was really about enforcing that, and also the location of where it is. It's on the corner, and it's covered really on my walks. I see that it's covered by a branch. So I'm not sure how much communication has been to the school. I did call the administration of the International School and ask them to message out to their families to try to be part of the solution as opposed to, you know, complaining about it. So anyway, there's a lot of speed on that street, and it's concerning in that the people who are picking up at the International School also have little children, and they're coming around that corner at a good speed, well over 20 miles an hour, and they also coming from Churchill as a cut through to cut off the light at up by the Mobile. Yeah. So I just wanted to bring it to your attention. I just really feel that it's a real safety issue for me on the street, watching it at, you know, key times, early morning, you know, around the 3:30 to 5:30 time. And, you know, sometimes, you know, you put your hand out to say, kind of slow down a little bit. And, that is just totally ignored. So I guess the question is twofold. I don't know if anything can be done about it, but I also wonder about the messaging on this 20 miles an hour on side streets, because clearly it's not happening on Murray Hill Road. I have no problem with them parking, school park, they park to go to events on the street. I get that, I don't own the street. That's all fine in front of my house and so forth and so on, but the speed and the cut through is just not acceptable as far as I'm concerned. And I don't know if this, one of my neighbors mentioned about speed bumps. I don't know if that's possible or not, but either that or visibility on the street. The other part of this is kind of interesting to us as being on that street for so long, that there's some confusion about whether Murray Hill Road is a one-way, and it is not a one-way. So, to come around the corner at a great clip thinking it's a one-way, you might just, meet up with someone coming down the street to go out Richard Ave that way. So, that's another piece of communication to those two schools. It clearly seems to be more the international school from my lens, but to say that they really need to understand the speed limit.
Dr. Woods, you raised several issues there that we can address. I see the commissioner writing down notes. I'm sure our traffic unit will have that in the morning. But in addition to that, the schools, I think that's an excellent way to do business here in a collaborative way with the community, and the school is part of the community. So if it's their parents or even students, if they're driving, we need to address that with the schools, and they should be cooperating with us regarding that. And the last thing I would add is we can bring this forward to the city's engineers, the traffic and parking department, Mr. Barr, and his people, the engineers especially. Does Murray Hill Road have to be looked at as a potential to changing the traffic pattern up there? Because that does a lot to slow down the number of cars and the vehicular speeding that you're questioning by changing the direction of travel and such. So there's many things that we can do here, and we'll evaluate them and pass this on to our partners in the city and again with the schools.
Great, thank you.
In the short term, as Superintendent DePietro talked about, we'll work with our traffic to see about getting that speed trailer up there so people know when they're going through. And that will kind of monitor how much people are speeding, and we'll get some actual numbers, and we'll work to get some enforcement up there during, drop off and pick up, working with our traffic department. We should be able to do that relatively quickly. So thank you so much.
Oh, good, thank you.
The last question that I had that was submitted, and this was just during this call, was specific to the Mr. Wilson homicide at Dennehy Park a couple years back, and someone inquiring about what the latest was on that and if there's been any progress on that. So I don't know if Deputy Cabral, if you could just provide a little bit of an overview of where things are right now.
So that remains an open investigation. There hasn't been a lot more progress from, what came out a year and a half ago. We're still working on it. I will tell you that we literally had a sergeant detective working this weekend, following up on tips that we're still receiving on that. So we're still very actively working that and still receiving tips from different people in different locations. So right now, we don't have a suspect identified. We don't in that case, but that is a very active investigation. Literally, as of yesterday, we were out chasing down leads in that. So we continue to work that case very diligently.
Great. And Terry, I saw your comment there about traffic and the four-way stop. So that's another one where we'll look to, we'll share this information with Mr. Barr in the Traffic, Parking and Transportation Department, just so they have that. All right, so are there any other questions?
We have
we have someone else here with us, a neighbor who wants to ask a question.
Hi, I'm Carol from Pemberton Street, the street with all the problems on it. So I was just wondering about the homeless situation at Danahy Park. There seems to be like a lot of people living there. Is that, what are we doing about that? They're down behind in the dog run, around the park.
So unhoused in Dennehy Park, huh?
Yep, they're living there. They have tents and all kind. There's like 3 big tents there. Where where the new park is being built? It's sort of to the side of that on the dog run.
Okay, we will actually, Freddie, I don't know if you knew about this. Did you know about this one?
We were actually, one of our homeless outreach officers was out there last week with some
Okay.
North Cambridge patrol officers on that. But that falls on the family social justice section, homeless outreach. So I will talk to the lieutenant there, and I'll have our homeless outreach officers pay some attention up there and see if we can see what's going on.
And just so you know, we're really working hard when it comes to those encampments. They're not safe. They are health risks, they're safety risks. The city provides so many resources for our unhoused community. So what we're gonna go there and do is try to get the people there connected to services. Our public works will come out and store their belongings. The encampments, where we're really working hard to not allow them to take hold in the city. We have so many resources. There are beds available. So we're gonna do everything we can to connect people to services and not allow those encampments to grow. So thank you for telling us about that. We'll be right on top of that.
So is that the dog
one
park
other-
by New Street? By the entrance
Yes,
by
you
the
know where
cinema?
the new, yeah, you know where the new playground is? It's like right to the side where they're doing all the construction on the side. They're sort of tucked in on the dog park as you go around New Street. Yep.
Yeah, there used to
Inside
be,
Danahy.
there used to be an encampment on that island, that triangle island, not in the park, that ran by that industrial
Yes,
site. So there used to be one in there.
Yeah.
And I know that Officer Padua, one of our homeless outreach officers, was up in that area last week, but they may have
Yeah.
returned. So we'll look into that tomorrow.
Okay, and the other question I have is we have seen a lot of people with psychotic breaks around Pemberton and the tennis courts. Do we call you guys when that happens, when they're like really, having issues? Like, can we call the police on that, or do we, what are we to do?
I want to give
Because
it to
we've seen
Christina.
about-
Yeah, I think Christina has a point, and then absolutely, I don't know if you want to answer that, Christina, but you should, but go ahead, Christina.
Sure,
Sorry.
yeah, we want you to call the police. If you're unsure if it's a safety issue, certainly call 911. If you feel like it's something that you can, not quite an emergency, but maybe you're concerned about a person's well-being, you can call our non-emergency number, which I'll give Jeremy our flyer so that it has all the information on there. But we do want to know about it and provide as much information as you can, the location. Sometimes it's helpful to what color shirt they have on, just if it's in an area that is populated, and really being descriptive of what behavior we're seeing. Our call takers are trained to triage using a medical protocol, and based on the information that you tell us, we'll be able to send the appropriate response, whether it's police and ambulance or whatever other resources might be needed.
And if I could just add a little bit to that, Christina and I are involved with the city manager. We're working hard on developing a city department that is going to be an alternative response apart from the police to respond to calls where you might not really, maybe there's no public safety issue, but they can help connect people to services. So the city is very committed to having that alternative response. And we hope, in the next couple of fiscal years, we'll have that up and running, maybe even by somewhere in 2022, at least a pilot.
And to go back to a point earlier, I wanted to bring up about our unhoused population. So we have our homeless outreach officers that Deputy Cabral mentioned. We have licensed social workers as well, and they're part of a larger group, a multidisciplinary outreach team, MDOT we call it internally, that goes out on a weekly basis to different parts of the city and connects with members of our unhoused, members that may be experiencing different challenges for a variety of reasons, and connect with them just to see what type of supports that they may need. So they're connecting on a regular basis, and we have really good pulse and handle in terms of where they are, what they need, who they are, and where they potentially could be best supported. So that's ongoing work that happens throughout the year, COVID, non-COVID, and they do a terrific job. That's, you know, within police department, but then extends to a variety of service providers throughout the city. So are there any other final questions for CPD? I think we've addressed everything that was up front, and then we had a couple during the meeting.
No, I addressed everything for CBD, and again, I thank you all for your service. I do have a question for ECC. Ma'am, with all due respect, sometimes when we call, your dispatchers are kind of dismissive, as if, you know, for various reasons. If we're calling the wrong number, just tell us and we'll call the right number. But like, if I tell you my dog is barking because there's somebody in the cemetery, don't tell me she's barking at a critter. Like, I know the difference. I've owned that dog for 10 years. I would know the difference. And I just feel like I get dismissed.
I am so sorry that you've had that experience, and I want to apologize. You know, at any time, I'm sorry?
Several times, not even just one, but several times. So honestly, if you don't want me, and I always call the non-emergency line, but because I recognize it's quasi-public property, not truly public, you know, but by the same token, if I think there's an encroachment on my property line, I'm going to call in.
Absolutely. And we want you to call it in. And again, I apologize for that. You know, you should call the non-emergency number. If you do think that there's suspicious activity in the cemetery that's abutting your property, certainly you can call 911 if you're in fear or just think it doesn't feel right. You should certainly call. A lot of times when residents call us, they get a little frustrated with the questions that we ask, whether it's a medical call or whether it's a crime or whether it's a fire related matter. And so they're trained to do some triage to help determine what the chief complaint is for a specific call for service. And what that means is it defines the response that is sent. So they ask a little information. Well, what are you seeing? Or, can you see anything? No, I can't. And I'm sorry that you felt that way on several occasions. I would suggest that if you're calling about suspicious activity or you think there's something suspicious, say I think that there's some suspicious activity going on. Or I think that there's somebody in the yard. I really can't tell. My dog is barking. I'd feel comfortable if you'd send a police officer, if you really get to the point where you need to. And certainly Jeremy can pass on my information, contact information. If you ever get a call where you don't feel that your voice was heard or that you don't feel valued, I want to hear about it directly. And I'm happy to have you call me directly and email me about it. I will do the quality assurance that's needed on those types of calls. But you should absolutely feel comfortable. It bothers me when I hear things like that. We're providing a service to the residents, but also we're providing this service for the police department and for the fire department. And we need to do a good job with that. And we need people to have confidence in our system. So I want to know about it. And we do quality assurance call reviews all the time. We're talking to staff all the time. Our training's up 300% due to the online COVID platform that became available because there was no other options. But we want to know about that. We want to do better. So please let us know.
Thank you.
And it was a good segue too, because Christina, I just wanted to open it up to you in terms of just encouraging people to call into emergency communications for a variety of issues. Anything else you want to share on that topic?
Sure. So you know, a lot of times people aren't sure what to call. I like to joke and say that like where everybody's Google. If you're not sure where to call even about a specific issue, you could give us a call, whether it's on the business line for the police or the fire department. We're happy to direct you to the right city resource where you would get the information that you need, or even be able to provide you the information. So I think that's really important to know. We're here 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We operate, you know, the 911 system. The 911 system also has text to 911. So if you ever find yourself in a situation where you're unable to communicate, you can text to 911 and we'll be able to communicate with you and find you. So I want people to know about that. Certainly call if you can, but if you can't, text to 911 certainly helps. And the other new thing that we have going on is if you want to prepare for an emergency in advance, you can create a free emergency health profile that you're able to share critical information during an emergency. So say, for example, you might have a health history issue, diabetic, seizure disorder, so forth. You could provide this information in a secure database that would only be provided to us when you call from that registered phone number. So I can't go in there and see what's Laura Lee got going on in her profile. It's only when you call. And the beauty of that is, in the event that the first responders, you know, they're going to get there, they're going to do their job. But boy, when they have a little bit more information about somebody's health history, it really makes a difference in those critical moments when there's a serious medical emergency happening. So also I'll send that to Jeremy so he can send it out to the group, but it's free. It's sponsored through the American Heart Association. So there's a, you know, longstanding organization that is partnered with one of our Rapid SOS technology 911 technology industry firms. And that information, even if you want to put information about your medications, or you have a dog, or, you know, anything that you want to share that's helpful in when police or fire, EMS, or responders you call, I think is really helpful. And it's free.
So we'll follow up with that after this meeting, along with the recording and a couple of other elements that we've discussed tonight. Any other questions for Christina?
No other questions for Christina. Jeremy, I just want to thank you very much for putting this all together.
Oh, thank you. We're not quite done yet. Let's a couple more things here. Let me give an opportunity.
That's fine. I wanted to just go on record while people were still on to say thank you.
Thank you very much. Chief Mahoney, you've been quiet. We haven't had any questions specific to the fire department, but anything you want to reinforce and get out to the public?
I would just echo the sentiments of Commissioner Relo and Director Giacobbe that, you know, don't ever hesitate to call 911. If you think you need help, whether it's a medical emergency, of something fire related, that's what our people are there for. Firefighters, police officers, EMTs, paramedics, they report for duty at the start of their shift, day in and day out, 365, 24/7, prepared to respond to calls for help. That's the reason we get in this business. So don't ever hesitate. You know, unfortunately, I speak about this fairly often, that, you know, on occasion you will see in media reports about, you know, there'll be a fire with some tragic consequences. And quite often it's, you know, people tried to fight the fire themselves. People went back into a burning building. Leave the firefighting to the fire professionals. Get out of the building, get people out of the building if you can, call 911. That's what we are there for. And, you know, I've been doing this, as I said, for 38 years. You name it, in the fire service, I've responded to it. There aren't too many types of incidents that I haven't been to in my career. But that's what we're here for, and don't ever hesitate to call for help. I tell our new people every time we hire new firefighters, I tell them a little quick story that former Cambridge City Manager Bob Healy had a great expression. He used to say, I don't care whether you work for the police department, the water department, public works, fire, traffic, we're in the customer service business. And we should never lose sight of that. And that's something that I know myself, I've never lost sight of. So don't ever hesitate to call for help. That's what we're there for.
Guys, that's gonna bring me one more point that I'm sorry, I forgot to bring up. The firecrackers and the fireworks this year, when it came later in the year, it wasn't such a problem, but for a while there, it was during a very dry season. And I understand maybe why the police didn't want to light up their blue lights and you know, cause noise. But was there a fire patrol out there? Because I'm a fire phobe, and honest to God, the thought of one of them setting my house on fire scared the crap out of me.
So we respond to calls, complaints, investigations, and so forth related to illegal use of fireworks. I'm going to be brutally honest with you. It is a problem throughout the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. One of the biggest challenges we have is that while fireworks are illegal in Massachusetts, they are legal in New Hampshire. The vendors in New Hampshire are very aggressive in their marketing in Massachusetts. The state fire marshal has tried to work with fire authorities in other states. We experienced in the summer of 2020, we had extremely significant uptick in the amount of fireworks related activity. People had been homebound for months. People were bored. People were looking for something to do, and they thought this was a great way to engage in outdoor activity once the warmer months came along. It's another thing where fireworks have had tragic and often fatal consequences throughout this country, year in and year out. And it's an ongoing challenge, but we respond to any report of fireworks. My fire investigation people have confiscated fireworks that turned over to the state fire marshal's office, where they are destroyed at the State Firefighting Academy. So again, it's just another thing. If there's firework activity, give us a call. We'll do our best to respond, and if possible, to confiscate the product before it's used.
I will also say we will also respond. I'm with you, Laura Lee. It is a public safety issue. It is not okay to light fireworks off. It's funny, I live in Boston and there's a big billboard in one of the main squares for fireworks in New Hampshire. It drives me absolutely crazy. And we will not, again, our approach is going to be to confiscate and educate. We're not looking to, lock young people up that have fireworks, but we need to educate people about the public safety issue that it creates. And we will have an officer, just kind of standing out. I'll call it babysitting. We'll sit there and not allow them to do it comfortably, right? We will confiscate it. If we see them lighting it, we will take whatever action we need to take. So call the police, call the fire, call us both. We will respond.
Great, thank you, Chief and Commissioner. The last question that we had submitted to us before the meeting, and I'll just bring it up, and I don't think the person who submitted it is on this call right now, but it was specific to, they live on Ringe Ave, side of Sherman Street, and how dark the area can be as it relates to streetlights in the surrounding neighborhood. I bring this up for the call and for the recording, did share that specifically with the city electrician, Mark Mello. And what he does is when he's notified of concerns around lighting in the city, he'll go out and he'll evaluate those areas and make his recommendations for potential enhancements lighting wise. So he's specifically going to be following up and doing an evaluation on the Ringe Avenue side of Sherman Street because of that feedback, and encourages residents to reach out to the city's electricity department as it relates to any lighting concerns. And we can do that through the police department as well if people want to reach out to us directly through emergency communications. But wanted to make sure that that was something that people knew we were addressing because of the concern that was brought up prior to this meeting.
Jeremy, can I just, one last thing that, I don't know if you spoke about it because we lost connection for a minute, but the traffic on Sherman Street and also the speeding. And I mean, we've had some major accidents on this street, and it's usually coming from off of Ringe Ave onto Sherman, heading in that direction. Is there any, I mean, we've talked about this years ago with the city. Is there anything that can be put on like the plate again to maybe evaluate and see what could be done?
So we'll add Sherman Street to the Murray Hill Road. This is, again, part of our traffic department, just to go there. I don't know, Lenny, anything more? I mean, as far as changing the street and the speed bumps, those can be a little bit more challenging, but sometimes just having a speed trailer out there and seeing, you know, some motorcycle officers out there doing enforcement, that's a huge deterrent. So again, kind of like data driven, right? Just telling us where the problem is so we can direct our resources to where those issues are. So I did answer in the chat about how we're going to follow up. So I'll make sure Jeremy has a running list of everything. I have my own little list, but I think if we all compile our list together, making sure that we address the concerns for Murray Hill Road, Sherman Street, the unhoused at Dennehy Park. So we'll work on having a bullet list, getting back to you with timelines for how we're going to respond. But hopefully, not hopefully, our traffic department will have a response this week to some of the speeding concerns. And the same thing with the unhoused encampment. We want to get right on that. And I think feedback from you, just knowing that you see the difference, is really going to be helpful. And the other thing with the encampments, a lot of times what happens is we will get it moved out and they move right back in. So staying on top of that and letting us know what you see is really important. So thank you.
Right. Thank you so much,
Yeah,
all
thank
of you.
you.
So wonderful.
you.
And we do really appreciate all that you do for this city.
Yeah, we
And for us.
appreciate you coming to the meeting. It really means a lot. This engagement is such a big part of our job. So thank you so much for being here tonight.
Yeah, thanks for not hesitating to reach out and pull this together. So we do have some follow-ups we'll do. I'll continue to communicate with you, Terry, and also with you, Laura Lee, in terms of some of these follow-ups, because you were so critical in pulling this together. I did want to remind that we do neighborhood notifications through our TIP 411 system, as well as our Nextdoor system. So we use that public safety section, if you will, to communicate neighborhood specific related information as well as citywide. So those are two key areas in which we're leveraging to make sure we get right to residents that are verified and have subscribed to our notifications. So we'll make sure we follow up through those channels, as well as directly through the co-organizers of tonight's meeting. And also make sure we'll have the proper email notifications for ECC, for Sergeant Kale, for myself. So you'll have all that information in our follow-up. And please don't hesitate to reach out to us in the future.
Thank you, Jeremy. And I have to say, Lorelei really did all the heavy lifting for this meeting. So we really appreciate what she did.
Yeah, she meant I did all the ball busting. Thank you, Jeremy.
All right, well, everyone have a great, safe night. And thanks again for being a part of this.
Thank you, everybody. Nice to see everybody.
Go Red Sox.